Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today, of course, is Friday, February the 6th, 2026. Of course, we are just a little over a week away from Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day, of course, next Saturday. Um, so hopefully everybody had a good week this week. Of course, we're going to give it a few minutes before we get started. Going to give people a chance to come in. Hopefully, as I said, everybody's had a good week. Also, a friendly reminder to everybody, of course, on both my Rumble and YouTube channels, that if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let's see now. So we're at, coming up on a minute and a half. So, yeah. So today did watch some cartoons from July of 1945. Um, Actually, including a couple of Mighty Mouse cartoons back to back: Mighty Mouse and the Wolf and Silver Streak. Um, in Mighty Mouse and the Wolf, of course, kind of they did a bit of a interesting take on some classic fairy tales in which Mighty Mouse fought the wolf in with it's one wolf that was involved in of course three separate fairy tales of first there was Red Riding Hood, and then there was the um, Little Bo Peep, and then of course there was the Three Little Pigs. So, and Silver Streak had him fighting off cats um, for a bunch of mice and their dog friend as well. So, um, anyways, it looks like we are coming. We're past it, so we're coming up on 3 minutes here. Guess I'll talk a bit about what's on tap for tonight. So tonight, what we're going to do, we're gonna just quickly go over because with the Super Bowl this Sunday, of course, MeTV Tunes had decided to counter program the Super Bowl with their own bowl called Bugs Bunny Bowl. So we're going to just go over that real quick. Then we're going to do a little bit of a profile on Bugs Bunny, the history of his character and how he was developed and all that. And then, of course, we'll do the wrestling wrap up, get caught up on what happened on last night's Impact and Ring of Honor shows. Of course, the Ring of Honor was doing their Global War show with Metroplex Wrestling in Texas. We'll look at that. We'll also look at, of course, look ahead to tonight's SmackDown and ahead to tomorrow night's Collision as well. Some exciting stuff there. As of course, AEW is building up towards its Grand Slam event next Saturday, and the next Sunday, I believe TNA will be I believe TNA will also be having a pay-per-view coming up here as well. Not this weekend, obviously, but next weekend. Let me see. Just double check here. And of course, after we look at the wrestling wrap up, of course, we'll also take a look back at this day in each history. So let me just see here coming up. Oh yeah, No Surrender, which actually is 1 week from today. So TNA's No Surrender will be 1 week from today. So with all that being said, as we are now so next weekend, of course, TNA will have No Surrender on Friday, and then AEW it will be in Australia all of next weekend with Grand Slam Australia on the 14th, and then they have House Rules on the 15th. Now, of course, we'll talk more about those next week, but right now, tonight we'll just get caught up on all the latest in terms of wrestling news. But also, as I said, you got others. So, anyways, one last friendly reminder before we get started here. We're now going to go ahead. I'm not going to go ahead and get into the main articles here, or the main article for tonight, talking about Bugs Bunny tonight. Again, and this goes for both my Rumble and YouTube viewers. If you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started then? All right, so now we went over this article earlier this week, so I'm not going to read through the entire article. I'll just read over like so as we mentioned as we mentioned the other day when we read this article, while the Super Bowl is going on, MeTV Tunes is going to counter program the Super Bowl with the Bugs Bunny Bowl here, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 Pacific, and going to midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific, on MeTV Tunes. And this is the lineup they have for Sunday afternoon, evening, night. So at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 Central, 1 Pacific, Bugs and Sports, featuring athletic classics like Baseball Bugs, Bullyfoot Bugs, the Greyhounded Hare, Acrobatic Bunny, and more. And then that will go for 3 hours. And then at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 4 Pacific, Bugs and Music, featuring musical classics like Stage Door Cartoon, Corny Concerto, Long-Haired Hare, Baton Bunny, Rhapsody Rabbit, and the Rabbit of Seville. Of course, somewhat of a adaptation of Barber of Seville. Then at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central on this Sunday, Bugs and Sequels, featuring cartoons that became their own series, including Rabbit Fire Seasoning, Rabbit Fire, Rabbit Seasoning, and Duck Rabbit Duck. That was a series of cartoons that featured Bugs, Daffy, and Elmer. That was the one that gave us the famous line, or the famous scene of Duck Season, Rabbit Season, Duck Season, Rabbit Season, Duck Season, Rabbit Season, Rabbit Season, Duck Season, Rabbit Season, Duck Season, Rabbit Season, Duck Season, Fire! And then, of course, we have the series involving Cecil Turtle, of course, Tortoise Speaks Hare, Tortoise Wins by a Hair, and Rabbit Transit. Then at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, 6 Pacific, Bugs and Elmer Fudd, featuring a wild hare. Basically all the cartoons where Bugs and Elmer were paired together. So these would include a wild hare, harebrained hypnotist, slick hair, What's Opera Doc, which you see Elmer at one point dressed like a Viking, the Unruly Hare, and Wacky Wabbit. Then at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 Central, 7 Pacific, Bugs and Fairy Tales, featuring your favorite fairy tales starring Bugs Bunny, like Beanstalk Bunny, from an adaptation of Jack and the Beanstalk, Bewitched Bunny, Bugs Bunny and the Three Bears, an adaptation of the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Rabbit Hood, Robin Hood, Little Red Riding Rabbit, Little Red Riding Hood, and the Windblown Hair. Then finally, in the last hour there at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 Central, Bugs Takes a Wrong Turn, featuring cartoons where he knew he should have taken a left at Albuquerque. You know, I should have taken a left at Albuquerque. We've heard that line several times over the years, right? Let's see now. So, let's see. This set of cartoons includes Alibaba Bunny, Hillbilly Hare, Big House Bunny, Frigid Hare, Sahara Hare, and the Abominable Snow Rabbit. So that's what you have to look forward to on MeTV Tunes this Sunday from 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 Pacific to midnight Eastern, 1 Pacific. So now what we're going to do, we're going to move on to, with that little reminder and talking a little bit about Bugs Bunny there, we're going to move on now to we're gonna look back at the history of Bugs Bunny a little bit here. So let me pull that up, pull that wiki page up. We'll kind of go over that for a while here. Now, one of the things I do remember reading quite a bit about is how, of course, Bugs got his name from animator Ben Hardaway. They came up because Ben Hardaway was nicknamed Bugs. Ben Hardaway, of course, was an animator first with Warner Brothers and later on with Walter Lantz. Ben Hardaway was the guy who took over the voice of Woody Woodpecker in the mid-40s after the tragic passing of initially it was when he got called into service, but unfortunately he passed away on a training flight before he even got deployed. The late great Kent Rogers, who was only 20 years old when he passed away, but he was already establishing himself as a pretty solid voice actor, what I could tell. So anyways, so as I said, let's get ready to let's get into the history of Bugs Bunny here a bit here. All right, so alrighty then. Bugs Bunny is a cartoon character created in the late 1930s at Warner Brothers Cartoons, originally known, of course, as Leon Schlesinger Productions, and voiced originally by Mel Blanc. In fact, he was voiced by Mel Blanc pretty much from almost his creation in the late 1930s all the way up until his passing in 1989. Bugs is best known for his featured roles in the Looney Tunes and Merry Melody series of animated short films produced by Warner Brothers. Early iterations of the character first appeared in Ben Hardaway's Porky's Hare Hunt, 1938, and subsequent shorts before Bugs' definitive character traits debuted in Tex Avery's A Wild Hare in 1940. So they had a bunch of prototypes in which Ben Hardaway was the one who was the one who initially created the prototypes, and then they finally nailed down by 1940 they were more or less nailing down who we would know today as Bugs Bunny. Kind of a tall, lanky, wisecracking rabbit that eat his carrot and go, "What's up, Doc?" Let's see. Bob Gibbons, Chuck Jones, and Robert McKinson are credited for defining Bugs' visual design. So, Bugs is an anthropomorphic gray and white rabbit or hare who is characterized by his flippant, um, insouciant personality, his Brooklyn accent, and the catchphrase, what's up, Doc? Now, for those of you who may not know what the term anthropomorphic means, it essentially means like animal characters or characters, basically characters you would think would not have being given human characteristics that otherwise would not have human characteristics, right? Like cartoon characters, like animals who instead of going around on all fours, are basically walk, travel upright, speak, and show at least a decent amount of human intelligence. Anyways, he's typically portrayed as a trickster, outwitting foes like Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam. And I just saw his first Yosemite Sam cartoon the other day, by the way, as well as various authority figures and criminals. He develops a friendly rivalry with Daffy Duck, though his popularity during the golden age of American animation, through his popularity during the golden age of American animation, Bugs became American cultural icon and Warner Brothers' official mascot. In fact, he had a couple of movies there, or a couple of shorts there where, well, let's see. At one point, he was portrayed as Super Rabbit. In that same short, he became a member of the Marine Corps, and they actually honored him with a legit enlistment. So, in fact, Bugs even appeared in a couple of Private Snafu cartoons as well, as I recall. Bugs starred in more than 160 short films produced between 1940 and 1964. He has since appeared in feature films, television shows, comics, and other media. He has appeared in more films than any other cartoon character. He is the ninth most portrayed film personality in the world, and has his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Wow, so quite a bit there. Let's see now. So the development, they actually even have a separate article on the development of Bugs, but we're just going to read from the one they have here. So his development here, according to Chase Craig, rather, who wrote and drew the first Bugs Bunny comic Sunday Pages and the first Bugs comic book. Quote, Bugs was not the creation of any one man. However, he rather represented the creative talents of perhaps 5 or 6 directors and many cartoon writers, including Charlie Thorson. In those days, the stories were often the work of a group who suggested various gags, bounced them around, and finalized them in a joint story conference. The prototype Bugs Rabbit with some of the personality of a finalized Bugs, though looking very different, was originally featured in Porky's Hare Hunt. So this is, of course, the character. Here, let me put that up there. So there's the there's and you see it in the right corner there. And I guess I'll enlarge that. Oops. Oh, that wasn't to enlarge. I guess this would be to enlarge it. Oh, no, I guess not. But here, right here was the early prototype of Bugs. It's short and a little pudgy. The features were a little more, a little more blobby, I guess. So there we go with that. Let's see now. Released on April 30th, 1938. It was co-directed by Ben Bugs Hardaway, basically where they got his name from, and an uncredited director, Cal Dalton, in parentheses, who was responsible for the initial design of the rabbit. His cartoon was an almost identical plot to Avery's Porky's Duck Hunt, 1937, which had introduced Daffy Duck. Porky Pig is again cast as a hunter, tracking a silly prey who is more interested in driving the pursuer insane and and less interested in escaping. Hare Hunt replaces the little black duck with a small white rabbit. According to Fritz Frayling, Hardaway and Dalton had decided to, quote, dress a duck in a rabbit suit, unquote. Okay, that was interesting. The white rabbit had an oval head and a shapeless body. In characterization, he was a, quote unquote, a rural buffoon. Okay. Mel Blanc gave the character a voice and laughed more like those he later used for Woody Woodpecker. He was loud, zany, with a goofy, guttural laugh. The rabbit character was popular enough with audiences that the Termite Terror staff had decided to use it again. So I did forget to kind of go over some of the box information here. So first appearance, Porky's Hare Hunt, his preliminary character, April 30th, 1938, 87 years ago. Wild Hare official character debut on July 27th, 1940, 85 years ago. The prototype was created, of course, by Ben Hardaway, Cal Dalton, Charles Thorson, while the official one was done by Tex Avery, Chuck Jones, Bob Gibbons, and Robert McKinnon, designed by Cal Dalton and Charles Thorson from 39 to 40. And Bob Gibbons was responsible for the design from 40 to 43, and then McKinson 43 on. Over the years, of course, Mel Blanc was the longest serving voice for Bugs, going from his debut in 1938 all the way up to 1989. Jeff Bergman kind of did it off and on over the years, initially from 90 to 93, following Blanc's death. Then from 97 to 98, then from 2002 to 2004, and 2007, and then he's been one of Bugs' voices ever since 2011. Greg Burson did his voice for about 10 years, from 90 to 2000. Billy West did it for about 10 years, from 96 to 2006. Joe Lasky lent his voice from 97 to 2011. Sam Vincent, a Canadian actor, provided Baby Bugs' voice in Baby Looney Tunes from 2001 to 2006. And then Eric Bauza has been his voice since 2018. So, and then in universe information, of course, he's a hare rabbit male. His significant other is his girlfriend Lola Bunny. His relatives include a nephew Clyde Bunny and a descendant Ace Bunny. All right, so with that being said, with all that out of the way, let's continue on with the article here. Hey there, Metal. We're coming in. We're talking about Bugs Bunny, as MeTV Tunes will be doing the Bugs Bunny Bowl this Sunday from 4 p.m. Eastern to midnight, 4 to midnight Eastern, 1 to 9 Pacific. I guess 3 to 11 Central for you, I guess. Um, so I decided to kind of go over his, some of his history and development and all that. Bugs Bunny. So anyways, continuing on here. So the Rabbit comes back in Presto Changeo in 1939, directed by Chuck Jones, where he is the pet rabbit of unseen character Shampoo, the magician. Two dogs. This is more of a Two Curious Dogs feature, Two Curious Puppies feature, who were another pair of like early semi-regular features um, in the early days of Warner Brothers cartoons. There, two dogs fleeing the local dog catcher enter the rabbit's absent master's house. The rabbit harasses them, but is ultimately bested by the bigger of the two dogs. This version of the rabbit was cool, graceful, and controlled. He retained the guttural laugh, but was otherwise silent. Now, this is a prototype of Bugs that we're talking about here. This was before he made his official debut. Let's see. And again, friendly reminder to everybody, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, getting back to the article here, getting back to the thing. So, the Rabbit's third appearance comes in Harum Scarum, 1938, directed by Dalton Hardaway. This cartoon, the first in which he is depicted as a gray bunny instead of a white one, is also notable as the Rabbit's first singing role. Charles Thorson, lead animator on the film, gave the character a name. He had written Bugs Bunny on the model sheet that he drew for Hardaway. In promotional material for the cartoon, including a surviving 1939 press kit, the name on the model sheet was altered to become the rabbit's own name, Bugs Bunny. Quotation marks only used on and off until 1944. In his autobiography, Blank claimed that another proposed name for the character was Happy Rabbit. In the actual cartoons and publicity, however, the name Happy only seems to have been used in reference to Bugs Hardaway in Harum Scarum. A newspaper headline reads Happy Hardaway. Animation historian David Gerstein disputed that Happy Rabbit was ever used as an official name, arguing the only usage of the term came from Mel Blanc himself. In humorous and fanciful tale he told about the character's development in the 1970s and 1980s, the name Bugs Bunny was used as early as August 1939 in the motion picture Harold in a review of Harum Scarum. Yeah. I would think, Metal, that you would have, because I know you're a big Mel Blanc fan. I figure you'd have a little bit more to say on all this than anything, but I guess we'll just wait and see, I guess. All right, continuing on then. Let's see. Well, first on, let me just do this. All right, so Thorson had been approached by Ted Pierce, head of the story department, and asked to design a better look for the rabbit. The decision was influenced by Thorson's experience in designing hares. He had designed Max hair in Toby Tortoise Returns, Disney 1936. For Hardaway, Thorson created the model sheet previously mentioned, the 6 different rabbit poses. Thorson's model sheet is a comic rendition of the stereotypical fuzzy bunny, unquote. He had a pear-shaped body with a protruding rear end. All right. His face was flat and had large expressive eyes. He had an exaggerated long neck, gloved hands with 3 fingers, oversized feet, and a smart aleck grin. The result was influenced by Walt Disney Animation Studios' tendency to draw animals in the style of cute infants. He had an obvious Disney influence, but looked like an awkward merger of the lean and streamlined Max Hare from The Tortoise and the Hare, 1935, and the round, soft bunnies from Little Hiawatha, 1937. In Jones's Elmer's Candid Camera, 1940, the rabbit first meets Elmer Fudd. This time, the rabbit looks more like the present-day Bugs, taller and with a similar face, but retaining a more primitive voice. Candid Camera's Elmer character design is also different, taller and chubbier in the face than the modern model. There was a period of time when Elmer was actually drawn as what they called the Fat Elmer for like a couple of years there. So, though Arthur Q. Bryan's character voice is already established. Now, Bugs' official debut. See how this all goes here. While Porky's Hare Hunt was the first Warner Brothers cartoon to feature what would become Bugs Bunny, a Wild Hare, directed by Tex Avery and released on July 27, 1940, is widely considered to be the first official Bugs Bunny cartoon. It is the first film where both Elmer Fudd and Bugs, both redesigned by Bob Gibbons, are shown in their fully developed forms as Hunter and Tormentor, respectively. The first in which Mel Blanc uses what became Bugs' standard voice, and the first in which Bugs uses his catchphrase, quote unquote, "What's up, Doc? What's up, Doc?" A Wild Hare was a huge success in theaters and received an Academy Award nomination for Best Cartoon Short Subject. Again, in the previous cartoons, he was more of a supporting character than the lead. So Wild Hare put him in the feature role there. For the film, Avery asked Gibbons to remove the rabbit, or remodel the rabbit, rather. The result had a closer resemblance to Max Hare. He had a more elongated body, stood more erect, and looked more poised. If Thorson's rabbit looked like an infant, Given's version looked like an adolescent. Blank gave Bugs the voice of a city slicker. The rabbit was as audacious as he had been in Harum Scarum, and as cool and collected as in Presto Changeo. Immediately following A Wild Hare, Bob Clampett's Patient Porky, also 1940, features a cameo appearance by Bugs, announcing to the audience that 750 rabbits have been born. The gag uses Bugs' Wild Hare visual design, but his goofier pre-Wild Hare voice characterization. The second full-fledged role for the mature Bugs, Chuck Jones's Elmer's Pet Rabbit, 1941, is the first to use Bugs' name on screen. It appears in a title card featuring Bugs Bunny at the start of the film, which was edited following the success of A Wild Hare. However, Bugs' voice and personality in this cartoon is noticeably different, and his design was slightly altered as well. Bugs' visual design is based on an earlier version in Candid Camera and A Wild Hare, but with yellow gloves, as seen in Harum Scarum, and No Buck Teeth has a lower pitched voice and a more aggressive, arrogant, and thuggish personality instead of the fun-loving personality after Pet Rabbit. However, subsequent Bugs' appearances returned to normal. The Wild Hare visual design and personality returned, and Blank used the Wild Hare voice characterization. Hiawatha's Rabbit Hunt, 1941, directed by Fritz Frayling, became the second Bugs Bunny cartoon to receive an Academy Award nomination. The fact that it did not win the award was later spoofed somewhat in What's Cooking Doc, 1944, which Bugs demands a recount, claiming to be a victim of sabotage after losing the Oscar to James Cagney, and presents a clip from Hiawatha's Rabbit Hare to prove his point. Let me see how much more they got here. I might continue this profile on Monday. It ended up being a bit of a longer article than I thought. But did I really want to go through all this? Probably not. Let's see. Look at all that. Yeah. Yeah, I think we got enough of the early, basic early how we got from Bugs' original appearance to. I think that's enough for here. So let's see. Yeah, 39 minutes. So we're coming up on 40 minutes. I think I'll wrap this up with that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the wrestling wrap-up here. We do have quite a bit to talk about here. We're going to first off take a look at last night's Impact on the wrestling wrap-up here. Let me see. of course, as they continue to march towards, as TNA continues to march towards next Friday's No Surrender, here's what's happened on. Here's the results from last night's Impact on AMC, and unfortunately, I did not get a chance to look over a. I did hear though that on his way out, Steve Macklin did apparently attack Mike Santana after Macklin had got the fired briefcase that time around. So coming from the Tingley Coliseum in Albuquerque, New Mexico, on AMC with Tom Hannafan and Matthew Rainwalt on commentary. The opening match saw Trey Miguel beat Adam Brooks 7.5 minutes. And a tag team action, the Righteous regaining some momentum following their loss to the Hardys back at Genesis by defeating Tommy Two Scoops and TW3 in 2 minutes 23 seconds. In the mixed tag match, Mustafa Ali and Tasha Steelz of Order 4 got the win over Elijah and Jada Stone, with, of course, they had the great hands of Jason Hotch and John Schuyler and Secret Agent Zero in their corner. Tessa Blanchard defeated Rachel Leigh in 3 minutes 26 seconds. And then in the main event, saw Indy Hartwell team with the Angel Warriors of Xia Brookside and TNA Knockouts World Champion Lei Ying Lee defeat the Elegance brand of TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions, World Tag Team Champions Heather and M by Elegance and Ash by Elegance, as the third member of the team. They seem to be setting up a program for Ash to maybe go after the Knockouts champion, while they're still waiting on if Danny Luna can come back to the state due to the visa issues. Anyways, that's all we got right now for Impact. We'll probably have more news on Monday on that. But now let's also take a look back to last night's global ROH Metroplex Global Wars on Honor Club. Coming from the Esports Stadium, Arlington, Texas, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Reclamani on commentary. The show opened up with an 8-person tag, mixed person 8-person tag match, in which Shane Taylor Promotions of World 6-Man Tag Team Champions Infantry, Carly Bravo and Charlie Dean, teaming with Shane Taylor and Trisha Dora, defeating the team of Demo Diamond, LVJ, Reza Clark, Demo Diamond, LVJ, and Kari Jai White. Then in a proving ground match for the Ring of Honor Women's World Television title, in which if the challenger either survives the time limit or wins the match outright, earns a shot at the Women's World title, Red Velvet defeats Vert Vixen in 7 minutes and 5 seconds. In tag team action, Big Bill and Brian Keith defeat the team of Surf and Turf with Brada Kaimi and Phil Shark. Now, again, this was a Global Wars event in which it was co-promoted with Metroplex Wrestling based in Texas there. So then after that, we get a match for the Metroplex Women's title, which former AEW talent Abaddon successfully retained the MPX Women's title over Ray Lynn, 5 minutes 45 seconds. Then in a Ring of Honor Pure title proving ground match, Lee Moriarty fended off the challenge of Exodus Prime. Had Exodus Prime won, he would have earned, had he won or lasted the time limit, would have earned a shot at the Pure Championship. And then in a match for the Metroplex title, JD Griffey defeated Dylan Cavens to become the new champion. And the main event in a 6-woman tag team match, Ring of Honor Pure Champion Deonna Purrazzo teamed with recent AEW signees Heian and Maya World to defeat the Minions in Training, led by Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Athena, with Billy Starks and Diamante also in the match. So, that's all we got for that. So now let's look ahead a bit to look ahead first off, of course, to tonight's SmackDown. As soon as I, of course, find that, as WWE is coming off of the Royal Rumble in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and now will be, as now things are setting up for the build towards WrestleMania. Of course, they'll have Elimination Chamber coming up here next month. Elimination Chamber, which will be coming up at the end of February here. So in 3 weeks from now, Elimination Chamber will be the next pay-per-view WWE will be doing. But with that being said, tonight's SmackDown, which will be airing on USA Network, be coming from the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. The one match that is signed for tonight's SmackDown is Shinsuke Nakamura taking on Tama Tonga of the MFTs. That's the one match that is signed for tonight on SmackDown. Some other stories to possibly look into include the possibility of Royce Keys making his SmackDown debut following his WWE debut at the Royal Rumble this past Saturday. With that, let's see now. So now let's also look ahead to tomorrow night's AEW Collision. Oh, I see. There we go. Tomorrow night's Collision, which will come from the Pearl Theater at Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, on TNT. Matches that are signed for tomorrow night include the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, will be taking on the Gates of Agony of Bishop Khan and Toa Leona. In a 3-way match for the TNT title, Tommaso Ciampa is getting right into it as he'll be defending his recently won TNT title against Roderick Strong and the current CMLL World Heavyweight Champion Claudio Castagnoli of the Death Riders. In a singles match, Scorpio Sky of Skyflight with Christopher Daniels and Layla Gray in his corner will be taking on Kevin Knight of Jet Speed. Mina Shirakawa will be taking on Viva Van in a women's singles match. Let's see now. In mixed tag team match, in preparation for their upcoming match against Orange Cassidy and Tony Storm, in which the loser of the fall will have their head shaved. The Death Riders, Marina Shafir and Wheeler Yuta, take on the Skyflight duo of Dante Martin and Zeta Steele. Tekla battles Brittany Brooks in a singles match, and in a 8-man parking lot fight. Eddie Kingston, Ortiz, and the Rascals members of Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz take on Big Bill, Brian Keith, and the grizzled young veterans of James Drake and Zach Gibson. So that's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up. Let's see now. So now we're going to go ahead and, with today being Friday, February the 6th, 2020, Friday, February 6th, 2026. Let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in each history. So, let me see now. So, 2002, 76, 2021, and 2011. All right. So first off, I'm going to head back 50 years ago, as on this date, 50 years ago today, back in 1976. In 1976. On this date, in 1976, the Spoiler regains NWA Georgia title from Dusty Rhodes in Atlanta. On this date, back in 1976, 50 years ago today, the Spoiler regains the NWA Georgia title from Dusty Rhodes in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, moving ahead to the year 2002, which of course was 24 years ago. It sounds like, of course, clear this part out. On this date in the year 2002, 24 years ago today, the fifth and final issue of For Women from DC's Wildstorm imprint went on sale on this date back in 2002. Sold for $2.95 for 32 pages. The fifth and final chapter of the 5-issue miniseries, has written and drawn by Sam Keith, lettered by Sergio Garcia, and colored by Alex Sinclair. Now moving on to the year 2011. So that, of course, clear that all out. On this date in the year 2011, let's see, Toei Animation Sweet Precure premiered on Japanese television on this date back in 2011. On this date in 2011, premiering on what is now known as ANN, known then as ABC and TV Asahi, Toei Animation Sweet Precure, premiered on this date back in 2011, so 15 years ago. And finally, and we move ahead to the year 2021, 5 years ago. On this date, 5 years ago today, premiering on Sci-Fi, Titmouse and Psy-Ops, Devil May Care, premiered on Sci-Fi on this date back in 2021, 5 years ago today. Devil May Care is an American adult animated comedy television series created by Emmy Award winner Douglas Goldstein of Robot Chicken fame and starring Alan Tudyk and Asif Ali. It follows life in a newly gentrified and urban hell and the evolving friendship between Devil and his freshly arrived social media manager, Beans. The first season of the series consisted of 7 11-minute episodes, premiered on Sci-Fi's late night programming block TZGZ on February 6, 2021. Alrighty then. So, with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we will be back here on Sunday, and I'll be joined by Rick Piper from Cross Comics. He will be looking at comics that went on sale in August 1940. We'll be beginning our August 1940 coverage. We'll be looking at comics on sale from DC in August of 1940, including, of course, looking at the first published appearance of the Golden Age Adam Al Pratt. We'll be looking at that. We'll probably be going over All-Star Comics #2. All-Star Comics initially, for the first 2 issues, was an anthology series that featured basically the headliners and primary backups of a number of different comics. It would eventually become the team-up comic for the Justice Society starting in issue 3, but we're going to be looking at issue 2, of course. But with all that being said, I thank everybody for being here tonight, and I hope to see everybody back here on Sunday. Bye.